So, next one for Sage that he's got lined up is Nobody Wants to Die. Let us know about this game.
Yeah, so this game just came out about 2 weeks ago. It's produced by Critical Hit, and it takes place in New York 2239. It's this kind of dystopian cyberpunk, but it's also kind of retro futuristic 1930s noir aesthetic going on. But it takes place in this future where immortality's basically been invented, and like having this ability to download and upload people's consciousnesses to new bodies. So you have this like wealthy elite that just they never die, and you have for the most part, nobody ever dies, but they do have this very weird system of body debts. So everyone's in debt over the husks that they put their minds into to stay alive. And you see some really gross, real dirty like slums where people have to live because all they can ever afford is to get a new body, and then they're in so much debt they can never really go and escape poverty. So it's a very interesting kind of. I'd almost describe it as like a Blade Runner meets BioShock as far as like the aesthetic of the world and the kind of philosophical breakdown of like a dystopic society and like kind of how that can work. But it's a really interesting setup here. But then the actual like story of the game is really focused on you're a detective, and there's a murder happens, and it's like a permanent death. Someone destroys the brain so that this person cannot come back. They cannot be uploaded into a new body anymore. And it sets off this, and because it's such a kind of mystery detective game, I don't want to spoil a lot of it, but you have this really cool set of mechanics that reminds me a lot of if you played like specifically Batman Arkham Origins, where you had the crime scene sequences where you can kind of reverse and fast forward time to kind of get a look at what happened and break the crime scene down and try and understand what's going on. The one criticism that I do have for as cool as that system is I do think the game it kind of always highlights where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to investigate and what tool you're supposed to use. Um, and I do think it would have been nice if you maybe had to figure a bit more of it out for yourself, just because I think it's hinging it on this mystery and this detective work. Because there's no combat in this game, right? It is purely detective work, right? Mystery game, pure
Mm.
narrative, all about the story. You walk around in first person and you investigate these crime scenes. You never fight anybody. And there's not even really collectibles that I was able to find to discover. I mean, there's evidence, right, that you're trying to pick up and learn from, but you I think just having a bit more challenge to that detective work would have been nice. But I do want to comment on how just gorgeous this game is visually. I mean, this is like a small little indie game. I believe it's only retailing for like 24.99, and graphically, this looks almost as good as anything AAA coming out right now. Um, and I think that just speaks to this is an Unreal Engine 5 game, and I think it just speaks to the power of how these game engines are progressing and how much easier they are as tools to be able to use, because an indie game being able to design a game like this that looks this good, like I feel like 5 years ago that was just completely unheard of. Like you did not get indie games this high quality visually. And I also did want to mention I didn't recognize the actors here from anything else that I have seen. But Philip Sacramento plays the lead character, James Cara. He's your detective. He's 129 years old. He's got a little bit of that like Max Payne monologue thing going on, where it's this very pulpy noir dialogue. I really like the writing there. He's a really good line delivery on it. Uh, Max Payne with a little more sarcasm is maybe a good way to describe him. And then say her name right, but Keaton Telmaje as the character Sarah Kai. She's you interact with her a little bit physically, but it's mostly the kind of voice in your ear, kind of going across, and it's giving the character a reason to talk about the evidence he's finding, right? Give someone to bounce the investigation off onto. But this the story quickly unravels into obviously there's more going on. Are there other major benefactors involved in this? It kind of opens up into a little bit of a serial killer narrative. Um, and again, I don't want to spoil the story itself too much, but there's some really interesting twists and turns here. I greatly enjoyed the acting performances. I thought the chemistry between Philip and Keaton was really good, especially since the majority of the game is you're just hearing these two actors bounce off each other during these crime scene investigations. Um, and yeah, visually amazing, great acting, great writing, I think, pretty much across the board. My big thing is just I really wish that it was a little more difficult because I feel like it would be impossible to not come to the right conclusion in these
Mm.
investigations.
So Keaton,
I think it's just, oh, sorry.
oh, I was gonna say Keaton Talmadge, who plays the character of Sarah Kai there. So she's like his Jarvis here.
A little bit. I mean, she's a real person sitting in a real place that is
Oh, okay.
communicating with you. It's just that because of the nature of people being in this kind of weird debt bondage over their bodies that they have to purchase, she's like stuck in like this slum area and like can't go outside for a good chunk of the game.
Okay.
And it also talks about being kind of afraid to go outside. An interesting element of the whole dystopic nature of the society here is you have people that are like so fearful of the outdoors, like everyone's inside all the time. You see like no plant life anymore outside. There's like you see Central Park at one point and it's like holographic trees everywhere. Like there's like no nature anymore. um and the slums even that you visit is actually Liberty Island, because this is New York, right? So it's like the statue. It must be the same universe Cloverfield happened in or something, because it's the Statue of Liberty's head is like it's like decapitated, and it's just like slums as far as you can see around the Statue of Liberty. It's a really cool visual, really really distinct and unique aesthetic. Like I said, it's kind of a Bioshock thing, but it's kind of a 30s noir thing, but it's also a Blade Runner cyberpunk thing. I can't compliment the visuals here enough.
So here you see some of the reverse technology here that happens, the investigation. So this is the first mission of the game, pretty much here. Explosion
Yeah, I
happens
think
at
that's
a
the
bar.
second one actually, but it
Second.
is early on.
Okay. So you see some of that,
It's
what you
like a
do here.
Hindenburg blimp crashes in, and you go in and kind of explore like this party that was happening as the crash went down, and what was going on, and was this, was this an accident? Was this on purpose? And then you kind of pick up the trail from there.
All right. Long game, short game.
This took me maybe 5.5 hours to play. It's a pretty short one. It's pretty short. I can't imagine this would take someone more than like 6 to 7 hours, even if they were being like very slow and really trying to find. But again, I think there's not that much to find here. There's not really a lot of like side stuff. Pretty much you're pointed in the direction of the evidence pretty much the whole time. It would be very hard to miss things. I think the only thing that could extend the game's runtime, honestly, would just be just stopping to appreciate how it looks and the art design.
Yeah. Metacritic has a pretty good score here. Generally favorable, 778, and then user score is at 8.0. Generally favorable here. Pretty good scores, except for this one person. They gave it a 5. They said not much to do aside from walking around and clicking things. Only 3 or 4 choices actually affect the ending.
And
There.
I can totally see that being a fair criticism for some people. There's kind of a whole genre of, I guess, what you'd call a walking simulator, and I think this kind of is in that territory. Um, and that's not for a lot of people, right? Like there's not enough gameplay that in walking simulator type games for a lot of people. For me, I think if the writing is strong, the acting is strong, I think that can really make up for a bit of a lack of gameplay. Um, like I said, for me, I just wish the detective work was harder. I wish you could fail. I wish it didn't always point you where you were supposed to go. I think it could have been a little more interesting if there was some difficulty to that. But like I said, the voice acting, the writing, the visual design, it was enough to pull me through. And especially being, 24.99, I think was the retail price for this. And being a 5-hour game, I could do a walking simulator for a 5 hour game for a game that's that short. To me, that's like a good length that works for that style. But I can 100% see that is not going to be for everybody. That for some people it's going to be boring just because there's not enough gameplay to engage with.
So I'm seeing here, yeah, length, like you said, it's pretty much around. It's gonna be around 5 to 6 hours to complete the game. Pretty much around that territory there. So for $25, you think it's about favorable 5 to 6 hours of gameplay there of content for 25
I
bucks.
think so. I mean, it really depends on whether the story, what does the mystery element of it work for you? Because it's all about a detective case, right? It's a serial killer narrative. Does this mystery's payoff work for you? For me, it landed pretty well. I was not necessarily predicting how things were going to go. So I appreciated it on that level. I think as long as the narrative works for you, I think it's worth the price. I'd give it like a solid, like kind of middle of the road tune in.
Okay, solid middle of the road tune in. It's available on all platforms. Like say you said, it is 24.99 if people wanted to check it out and pick it up there. Nobody wants to die there.